unfortunately, which will make us lose confidence. I don't think we can, I don't think I completely agree that I don't think we should depend on institutions. It has to be a people's movement, especially when change like this happens. In the past 10 years, 15 years, we've seen the kind of change which, and in the past, I think since demonetization, especially, we've seen a change in the way in which the state is viewing people. People are, I mean, all of us today are like customers of the state. They will give us some things, they'll take some things away, we'll be controlled, we'll be told what we are allowed to do, we'll be mandated to do some things, we'll be told what we cannot do. So there's a lot of instruction and expectation from us as a people, and we are being told that whatever the state does, we have to be grateful for it, have no expectations. So there is something completely wonky in this. And when Dr. Parikala Prabhakar was speaking and he said about the state wanting a different people, actually Bertolt Brecht wrote a poem on that after the 1917 revolution. Where he was talking about how the normal thing is that when the people don't like a government, the people will vote out the government. But in this case, the state, as it gets stronger and stronger, it finds that it doesn't like the people. And so it wants to vote out the people and to create its own people. The SIR and what is happening with elections is one part of it, where I think it's so plain that sometimes it amazes me how brazenly these things can be done. You would expect that there will be coating it in some sugar pill or something. There is nothing. They're just being told this is who you are, this is what we think of you, and this is what we're going to do. Let's see what you can do about it. The thing is that in the political space and where power is just power, and people are hanging on to power for a long time, I can still understand that the nature of power makes them act like that. The judiciary is a different game, and I'll just talk about the judiciary today. The thing is that there are many problems with the judiciary. It's not only of corruption, it's institutionally there are many problems with the judiciary. And it's not only of ideology. There are people who might not belong to any particular ideology. I mean, I don't think anyone doesn't have a politics. If you don't have a politics, that's a politics. So, but it's, it may not be ideologically wanting to do something. There are many judges like that. And the unfortunate thing is that, it's not just judges and lawyers, and I hope there are some here, in fact, I would disagree with Dr. Parikala Prabhakar that you shouldn't tell the political parties what he said. What's the point of saying it if you don't say it to them? They need to hear it, and I presume that's what you were asking us to do. When I say don't do. That's the presumption. So and I have no clue where I came there, so I'll just start from wherever I was. The thing is that in recent times we found that there are some questions that were not asked before. So the one issue I think that we are all confronted with and we should really be worried about is the question of citizenship. I don't think any of us would have expected some time ago that people will be feeling insecure about their citizenship. And I don't think there is much doubt that this has to do with an anti-Muslim sentiment among ruling classes, but I don't think that's all. And the way in which we saw what happened in Assam, and Assam should really have us worried. Not just because of what is happening in Assam now. This started in the late 90s. Now, of course, it started in the 80s. It started in the 70s after the Bangladesh war. But, till the 80s, we were still seeing India as part of the Indian subcontinent. We didn't think of neighbors as, forget about states, neighboring people as being people who threatened each other. There was a way in which there was a movement of population. There was a similarity in our populations. We have a common heritage. I don't think that the borders that were drawn when the British left is what determined how we dealt with each other as a people. We find that changed somewhere, after the Bangladesh war, there was some change. But if you look at what, after the Assam Accord, the kind of law that was brought in, the amendment that was brought into the Citizenship Act, we find that they actually talk about that whole region as belonging to the Indian subcontinent, which is why they said, okay, people who've come here although we say independence was in 1947, partition happened at that time, we do acknowledge that this, the commonality amongst us and the movement, our borders are not, they're political borders, they are not human borders. So people have come and gone, people have settled, people have had lives here, people have had children here, and those children are part of this country. So the second time that we said we are drawing a line in relation to people was in 1971. We said, okay, till 1971, whoever's been here, we will, they can all become part of India. The problem was political. The problem was that there was this suspicion that people were being brought into the country and were being settled to further electoral prospects of, of some party, basically of the Congress at that time, I think. And then, therefore, when after the Assam Accord, the Citizenship Act was changed, once a person registered saying, I've been here from, from 1971, from before 1971, they were entitled to every right of citizenship except the right to vote, which was suspended for 10 years. So you register, you say, I've been here, including the passport, and passport is really a statement of your citizenship that you declare to the rest of the world, and the state supports you on it. So we didn't see people as, we didn't see the otherness in a way where we felt we can't integrate, we can't live together. We didn't have that sense at all. It's in 1987 that we find that the first shift starts happening. In 87 they say, if a child is born in India and if either parent is an Indian, then the child will have a right to Indian citizenship. It was still, making those distinctions, why we needed to do it, we'll have to think about, but it was a political moment. They still did not deny citizenship to a child born in India if either of the parents was Indian. It's in 2003 that we start seeing the decline. And in 2003 you have an amendment that is brought into the Citizenship Act where they say that if either parent is an illegal migrant, and let's remember that illegal migrant is by determination by somebody else. If you are not able to establish that you are a citizen, if you don't have documents, this is the first time we have to become documentary citizens. Being there for 6 months at a time and being found there again, all that becomes irrelevant because now they begin to ask for various kinds of documents which many people will not have. And actually, I think one of the fascinating documents that I found when I was reading up on all of this years ago was the report on the first elections that were held. In 1955 there was that the chief election commissioner, that the election commissioner at that time had issued a document. I mean, he wrote up how they conducted that first election. And it's fascinating that in 1951-52, we hadn't yet settled our population along the borders. People didn't know whether you were going to, when you went to, what was Pakistan, what was India, what did it mean if you went across the border, what happens if half the family goes there and half is here. See, these are not things that the South has really confronted. And when I went to Delhi first and I started living there, and the first time I asked a Punjabi friend for some literature on the partition, she said she would give me anything I wanted because I was a South Indian who was mentioning the word partition. Because we just don't think enough about it. And that in that whole region, this is a very, it's been a turbulent, turbulent in terms of citizenship, in terms of settling, in terms of families. It's been very big. So our political borders got determined even a little more strongly after 1971, but we still didn't do exclusion. Now, why am I saying all this when I'm going to talk about the judiciary? Because the judiciary has been at the center since 1999, at the center of this anxiety that they've shown that, if we allow this to continue, if we allow people to come in and then claim citizenship here, very soon Assam will go to Bangladesh. This anxiety, of course, in history, we know that there was also a possibility at the time that India became independent and partition was happening that Assam could have come here or, gone to Pakistan. That's a long time past. And I don't think anybody is even thinking about it now. And like one of the lawyers in Assam who's practicing in the Foreigners Tribunal and in the High Court there said, he said, if this anxiety, which was, one one person from the army makes a statement like this, it's a xenophobic statement, but it was his anxiety. If you make a person's anxiety state policy in relation to people, and then the judiciary adopts it and says that, oh, so this could happen, and like the lawyer said, by now there would only be Bangladeshis in Assam if that anxiety had come true by now. So these are things that are not happening around us, they are happening only in minds, and our minds are getting pushed into these corners. So we are being told that we need to have a complete revamp of electoral rolls, because it's in electoral rolls that all these people come in and then they put themselves in, and these are actually foreigners. So this, I think the first thing we need to do is, even for ourselves, to stop thinking in terms of legality and illegality and think in terms of humanity again, because these are not, we are not, people are not enemies of each other. So if there has been movement, that's one thing we acknowledge. The thing is, if we do accept, if suppose we do accept that we do need to have a time when we just have a national citizens register, do we have any means of doing it? Is there something that anybody has, that everybody will have, which will establish that they've been, in this country from the beginning? Can everyone have it? People who don't have property. People, we are all people who've seen it, and some of us have studied it, that when you have ration cards, in the early 2000s, they said in Delhi, they said you have to change your ration card, you have to update it. They took away the old ration card to give the new ration card, which means you don't have anything saying you've been there from before then. And state systems, and let's be clear about this, like that's what's happening with SIR too. State systems are saying that our records are not clean. You better come and prove that you are who you are, then we'll update our records on that. So if I go to the election, if I go to the election commission, go to a municipality or go anywhere and say, can I please have my birth certificate in the municipal record? They may not have it. And it's not their responsibility. There is a huge burden that is being shifted onto people, onto every individual in this country. And this is not even to families, it's to every individual, to establish that they have a right, that they are citizens of this country, and they've been that for a long, long time. Now the courts have no ability to recognize this. We know that the whole Assam process was actually pushed by the courts. It was Justice Gogoi's bench which kept pushing that agenda and saying, finish it fast, we need to find out who all these illegal migrants are and we need to throw them out. And we know what a disaster that has been. In fact, one of the interesting, when we talk technology, how some of them want to move away from acknowledging it. TCS, which was involved in the whole exercise, they had advertised themselves as having participated in this process of the national population register in Assam, and then they found what a disaster it was, and they pulled out that from their website. Then India Today caught it, they wrote about it, and then TCS had to put it back because it was an embarrassment to have it there, and then withdrawing it, it was an embarrassment not to put it back. So there are many ways in which the tragedy of citizenship is playing out in our country, and I am not sure at all that the court has shown itself able to understand what it is. I'm also making a point of this because in the SIR, they have now said that, the Election Commission, and I think this has been said ad nauseum, and I'm just going to add to that nausea to say it, but the Election Commission has no business determining citizenship. They have no role in determining citizenship. If there is anyone who has to attempt to do it, it has to be the Registrar General of India, and it can't be just anybody. And it certainly cannot be, the Registrar General of India comes under the Home Ministry, but Home Ministry can't decide who a citizen is and who is not. The Election Commission certainly doesn't have that right. If they have any doubt about the citizenship of a person, they can ask institutions which are like the FRRO or Foreigners Tribunal or something to see if their name has been declared as being a non-citizen. The default mode is that a person is a citizen unless proven otherwise, and that's getting lost somewhere in this. So and since this is about people's movements, I just want to bring back to the fore this idea of non-cooperation. This is something that we thought about when the UID Aadhaar was on. And we said that, they come and tell you, I won't give you you can't have your bank account unless you go and you get a UID and you link it up. And all of us meekly go. People keep asking, oh, you still haven't done it. it's like there is a point at which we stop being citizens and start becoming subjects. I think we need to change that mindset. If there are going to be people in our midst who are going to be challenged in their citizenship because either because they don't have documents to establish it, பூர்வீகத்திலேருந்து எல்லாத்தையும் கொடுக்கணுங்கிறாங்க, எங்கே போகிறது அதுக்கெல்லாம்? So if they say that you have to, I'm sorry, there's no good word for purvigam, and ancestry doesn't quite fit it. So if they say that that's what you have, many people don't have it. And some people will get away without it because they are not suspect, they are not doubted. So we know who will be doubted. Now if there are going to be, like Dalits could get well left out because they will have very few documents to show for anything at all. So what are we going to, they've never held property. They've been battling for property for the longest time. And most of the other documents, I mean the SIR was fascinating because what does it mean if I've done my matriculation and I have a matriculation certificate from Bihar? Does it mean anything at all? I mean and it's not even a qualification to be a voter. So why are we even using this? So the thing is that if there are going to be so many people in our midst who are not going to be able to establish themselves sufficiently to be part of this, democratic system, then should we be cooperating with that system? This is the country that invented non-cooperation, and we seem to have forgotten what it means. We are like, okay, we'll comply and then we'll see if we can help other people comply. And compliance is actually not an option. I don't know even in this room how many people can produce all the documents needed for citizenship. It's a different thing. They may not ask us. They may ask some of us, but they may not ask everybody. It depends on who they want to exclude and who they want to be kept in. So the first thing is the impossibility of establishing citizenship for many people. The second thing is if many people can't do it, should those who can just go ahead and say, okay, let me save myself? Is that even people's action? And the third is, can we depend upon a court to do something like this? And I think we know now that it's not just about courts being, judges being good, bad, corrupt, not corrupt. It's not just that. It's also to a great extent, judges, for one thing, they're overwhelmed. If they do 60 cases a day, I don't think they can apply their mind sufficiently to anything at all. And the second thing is, I don't really think they understand the polity. They're people who've moved away from the common people. They have not been among them. In that sense, even persons in politics, if they get out among people, are a better bet and a safer bet than people who are sitting in courts. So either we take the responsibility of informing them, of educating them, that they understand this before we take any issue to them, or we don't depend on them. The problem is that somebody will go, and then they will make whatever decision they want. We have to find a way of addressing this. It can't be that we just, there is no full stop at the end of a judgment. Even the courts have said that. They say first they said review petition, then they said curative petition. So they've said, there was always the thing that the Supreme Court is not fallible, is not final because it's infallible, but infallible because it's final. And in India we've said, no, there is no finality. We can, you can, if two senior advocates say that there is a good case for you, you can go back and reopen a case that had been closed a long time ago. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's an acknowledgement by the system that it does not have the wherewithal to be able to decide correctly a lot of the time. And I think we need to, this is too serious. Citizenship is too serious for us to leave in the hands of an institution like this unless we take the responsibility of educating them, in which case we can take it to them maybe at some stage for certain reasons, but there is no full stop at the end of it. And I think we need to acknowledge that. The second thing is about impunity. I think there's a lot of impunity. In the late 90s, when impunity became a word, it came because of the International Criminal Court. And they said, there are states that commit, or people who take shelter from states, and then they commit very egregious crimes against humanity, genocide, war crimes. And it was to take away, that protection was called impunity. We knew immunity. We didn't know impunity. Now it is common parlance. We all know that impunity shields people from accountability. So what we need to do is to tear down impunity. The problem with this is that when courts take a long time to make decisions, you take the demonetization case. Now, I don't know why the court took time with that, because they should actually have heard it immediately and not taken any time at all. But it's one of the ways in which the court works that it says, issue notice, call people, keep it after a month, let's see if it resolves itself. That's a very common thing, and that's why I think we heard this morning too about at the end of a process a court saying, it's all over, why are you raking it up all over again? This happens because courts don't know how to deal with many of these things. They don't know whether they should be saying demonetization is bad or good. But suppose actually demonetization stops terrorism, then should we be saying no to it? So what has happened in these about 25, 30 years in the Supreme Court, and in many of the high courts, high courts follow what Supreme Court does too, is that principle has been replaced by pragmatism. So the principle is that everyone should have liberty. Pragmatism is that some people may need to be put away. If the state feels that some people should not be out and that they will break public order and rule of law and all of that, then maybe the court should not come in to say that you should let the state act. So we are seeing now, for instance, when in the context of ending naxalism, the number of people who are being shot in encounters, they're being shot, I don't know if they're encounters, but whatever, they are being shot. Actually, no country would tolerate its people being shot as a matter of state policy. State policy is to eliminate naxalism and in the process maybe eliminate Naxalites. Now if we say this today, they'll say, oh, you are urban Naxals, you are sitting here and supporting them. No, we are actually holding the state to account in relation to the constitution. The state does not have the power of life and death over people. They can help in producing life, in providing, bettering life, but they have no power to kill us. The only process which also many of us object to is the death penalty, and the death penalty really needs to go because we've seen what the history of the death penalty in this country has been. So this is also why a court will tolerate and be very soft on extraordinary laws. What does it mean to have something that can be called extraordinary laws? Why do ordinary laws not suffice? And what is different between an extraordinary law and an ordinary law? You find that even something like the Financial Action Task Force is sitting inside the UAPA today. What does it even mean? What does it tell us about our polity, and what does it tell us that we have not noticed? We have not raised a stink about it. So what does it tell us about ourselves too? I'll just stop with one more thing. There is a lot, but I know that time is short. But I just have to say this one thing, that in the proceedings in the Supreme Court that have been going on the SIR, I have worked on the UID for a long time, and so I cannot not say this. I was deeply disappointed to see that we had gone to the court, and the court was saying, why don't you also add the Aadhaar? Put the Aadhaar also in it. Like it is, why don't you add a little bit of sugar to your coffee? And it was accepted. One reason that it was accepted, it seems, and I've talked to some of the people who are involved in the litigation, and one reason that they said we'll accept it is because actually people don't have, most people who don't have any other document have an Aadhaar. So they felt that, okay, at least this will help them get on to the database, to the voter database. But actually, if you think about it for a minute, already the Election Commission has said maybe 175 times that they will take the Aadhaar, but they need one more document to supplement it, that this by itself will not be sufficient. So what have we done? We have asked everybody to go and give the UID number to the Election Commission. There is already a case pending in court, and this is the other thing about the courtroom. Courts have they don't have institutional memory, they don't even know what is happening in other parts of their own court, their own court premises. There is a case that has been filed by Sudhir Vombatkare, and he's challenged there, when the Election Commission said that you must attach your UID to the voter ID, he challenged it saying this is very dangerous for democracy. Why did he say that? He said because the moment, we were talking about people being able to see things at the booth level, the UID today for the poor especially, and for those who depend on state support, it is linked with everything, every system in which they are involved. Everything. Now you have the voter ID also having it, this is just one of the reasons he gives, You have the voter ID also being attached to the UID also being attached to the voter ID. In every vote, they'll be able to see who did you vote for, and to decide how you will punish them. This is not it's no longer hypothetical. It's already happened. I remember during the Kudangulam protests here, it was a different context, it was not the UID. Some of the protesters took their voter ID card and threw it into the district magistrate's compound. And then the district magistrate had it all collected and said, find out who these people, if these people have ration cards, and we'll cancel their ration cards. Why? Because if they don't care about, the voter ID and election, because the people were saying, you're not listening to us anyway, what is the point of this? It was a symbolic protest. Now the symbolism was lost on them. They took it literally and said, if you don't want this, then you are not entitled to your rations either. We've seen in state after state linking up the UID with anything else endangers that system. So we are basically saying that, okay, let's put it on. And we also know that the one thing that they are shouting from the rooftops and is that UID is not, it's not a statement of citizenship. So what is it going to get people by putting this, linking these two up? If the people have to anyway give one more identity, go and establish themselves again, it's not going to establish their citizenship. It's going to link all of this up and make people even more vulnerable than they were when they began. What is the point of this that we have ourselves suggested, and why does the court suggest this? What is the court thinking the UID is? It hasn't read its own judgment. It doesn't know what's happening in another court. It doesn't understand the system. And it's a very sweet and charming kind of statement that's made by the court. Why don't you take this also? And they say, okay, we'll take that also. But we will give you nothing for it. So just think about what all this means. I mean, going to a court is, unfortunately now, in recent times, not recent time, over 40 years, it's not like my case will go to court only when I go to court. Today anybody can take matters to court, and so very often people are doing it to preempt other people from going to court. But I think we need to do a lot of preparation because judges themselves are not prepared. Thank you.